they start sounding less like themselves and more like the internet. The real issue is founders start communicating competency without identity. We are all tired of feeling like we're interacting with brands and businesses that don't actually care about us. We want to know who we're listening to and what that person believes. As content becomes easier to automate, humanity becomes harder to fake. Have you noticed content online is getting technically better while somehow becoming less memorable all at the same time? The cameras are better, the lighting are better, the editing, pacing, all of it. But you can still swap out one founder with the next, and the experience barely changes. Everybody sounds polished. Everybody sounds correct, but almost nothing sticks anymore. And I think a big reason for this is that we've become so good at optimizing content that we're accidentally getting rid of the very thing people will remember from us in the first place: our identity. And AI is obviously an accelerator for a lot of this. Same aesthetics and phrasing, and don't get me started on those M dashes. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why this is happening, what people actually remember, and why some founders build authority online while others just blend into the feed. For the first time in history, almost everybody has access to the same tools, and it doesn't cost much. And honestly, I think it's pretty dope because I'm all for leveling the playing field, competition, and being selected based upon your own merits. Today, more people can develop businesses and improve the trajectory of their families. These founders can build the type of freedom that wasn't realistic before. More entrepreneurs can create leverage for themselves online without needing permission first. But there's also this weird thing that's happening where there's this pressure to constantly create, even when you're overwhelmed or you're unsure on what exactly to say, just so you can keep up with the feed and stay active within the algorithm. And when that happens, naturally, you begin looking outwards for direction. Everybody starts pulling inspiration from the same sources, using the same frameworks, inputting the same prompts into AI. And slowly, without realizing it, they start sounding less like themselves and more like the internet. The real issue is founders start communicating competency without identity. It's kind of like being in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally unavailable. Yeah, technically, they're doing all the right things, but you can feel that something is missing. And eventually, you realize it's just not enough. That is because what you're really craving is connection. You want to be understood. You want to be considered. And that's no different from your audience. Nobody wants to hear somebody talk about a real problem that they're facing while sounding like every other creator online. Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel." That's exactly why we can immediately recall specific founders and brands. We remember those who are a bit different. Was it be in the way that they explain things, their perspective, or even their lived experience? We know there's an actual human behind that content, and subconsciously, we're rooting for them. Honestly, it's that human element that is becoming more valuable than ever, because as content becomes easier to automate, humanity becomes harder to fake. And this matters a lot more than people think, especially if you're a founder. If you're a service-based provider, coach, consultant, or even a creative of any kind, especially if you're selling high-ticket services, you've probably realized people aren't just buying your skill set. They're buying your perspective. So yes, competency is the baseline. That's the bare minimum. But it's really the way you make people look at their problems, themselves, and the path forward. That's why certain founders can say something that is simple as hell and people still trust them more, because over time, they've built emotional credibility. This was one of the ways I differentiated myself in my early days of video production work. During discovery calls, it will become obvious very quickly, like within minutes, whether a prospect just wanted someone to show up with cameras or if they were looking for somebody that was actually thinking deeper about their business. Because for me, I wanted to know what we were creating for. Was this social media content? Is it for a new offer? Were they attempting to get more sponsors for an event? Like, I was legit trying to find out everything. Like, what was the actual outcome that we were going to create? What was the aim here? And even if they didn't go with me, I would still advise them on what to watch out for when selecting a vendor. And these conversations gave me a reputation of someone who was honest, who had integrity, and who was strategic. That trust made charging premium pricing easier. People came to me pre-sold. And this is why smart founders are becoming forgettable. They're so focused on creating content in order to convert their audience that they forget that people are buying into them too. And just to put this into perspective, one of the first video assets I always recommend to clients is a brand story video. Because a lot of times the business itself isn't even the most interesting part. It's usually what led that entrepreneur to forming the business. And more often than not, it traces back way further than the creation of the business. Maybe it was something that they experienced growing up or something that they've noticed early on. That's how it was for me. In any case, it's usually some frustration that they've been carrying for years that eventually turned into the thing they now help people solve. That's why somebody like Hermosi constantly talks about sleeping on a gym floor. It's not just a story. It communicates obsession and sacrifice. There's a level of clarity and identity there that makes people remember him long after the content is over. It makes the founder feel like a real person instead of just another business online. This is the type of stuff I spend a lot of time helping founders think through. Not just how to create content, but how to communicate in a way that actually builds trust around their business. So if that's something you need help with, click the first link in the description below. But let's keep going. The shift founders need to make is understanding that visibility and strategic visibility are two completely different things. Because at this point, literally anybody can generate content. Anybody can look good online, but that doesn't automatically create trust. We are all tired of feeling like we're interacting with brands and businesses that don't actually care about us. We want to know who we're listening to and what that person believes. And if you're a founder or service provider trying to become memorable online, this may genuinely be one of the greatest opportunities of this era, because the more content starts sounding the same, the easier it becomes for real identity to stand out. Not performative identity, not personal branding, just an actual person with a real perspective and a reason for doing what they do. So if you're a founder trying to build trust online, ask yourself whether people are actually remembering you after the content is over, and if your content is getting attention, but not creating trust, urgency, or real inbound. Watch this video next, because there's a misunderstanding around value content that's keeping a lot of smart founders stuck in the exact same cycle. I'll see you there. Love.